amazing. He regularly adds $100,000 in net profit of businesses in months without them spending a cent on marketing. So I really know you're going to get a lot of great strategies today. Tim's clients' businesses are generally in the range of $500,000 to $10 million in turnover. I'm really looking forward to what he's going to say, so let's get started. Over to you, Tim.
Thanks, Michaela, and welcome everyone. I'm excited by what I'm going to be sharing with you. You can ask me questions at any time. You've got a little chat box down the bottom. Feel free to do that. I think everyone's pretty much unmuted now, so you probably can verbally ask me questions. This is my first time I've run a GoToMeeting instead of a webinar. Normally in a webinar you can't see the presenter and everyone's muted, so I thought I'd throw it open to the floor a little bit. I prefer, in a lot of ways, seminars where I'm seeing people and asking them questions and interacting and just enjoying the education and the experience of getting to know people. So feel free, if you've got questions anytime, ask me and I'll do my best to answer them, whether it's text or other. So welcome to the webinar. Let's get the show underway. So the meeting comments is how to double your profits in months without additional marketing, as in without spending money on lead generation or any of that sort of thing, pay-per-click, any of that sort of thing. We'll talk about the strategies for that. How to convert more sales from incoming phone calls. I'm sure that you all answer phones, and there's some real magic in the way that you go about that, so we'll talk about that. How to increase your prices by 10 to 20% without any risk of profit or loss. There's some real magic in some of those strategies I'll show you as well. And a good one, which I often hear business owners requesting, how do I motivate my staff to work as hard as what I do? How do I do that? So how does this sound so far, people? And give me some feedback. Are these the sort of things that you'd like to hear? Are these the sort of things that stand out most for you that you'd like to learn? Do you like to ask people questions? And I do like to get answers from questions, so if you've got any responses to that. And if we could achieve these things, what difference would it make to you in your personal life? Because I'm about changing business owners' lives, not just about growing their business, but trying to change their life as well. Has anyone got any sort of responses to those? No responses? Got to warm up the crowd a bit more, Michaela. All right.
I certainly know a lot of my clients are asking for these types of things all the time, really how to grow their sales and their leads without having to spend, copious amounts and thousands of dollars they don't have. So I certainly think that it's things that they really need to know.
Fantastic. Well, thanks. Yes, Danielle said yes. Ready to double profits. Double your profits. Sounds a little bit impossible, doesn't it? A lot of people say, I don't see how I can double my profits. If I said to you I was going to show you how to double your turnover, I'd probably say that's impossible. But actually doubling your profits is quite a lot easier than doubling your sales or your turnover. That's what I want to talk about today. Kelly's talking a little bit about how do you double nothing. Well, one person sort of said, how do you double nothing? Someone said that to me yesterday, actually. I was talking about doubling profits, and they said, how do you double nothing? I said, maybe it's better to talk about how to have surplus cash in your bank after you paid all the costs, all the bills, and yourself a certain amount as well. That sounds pretty good, doesn't it? So maybe that's what we need to talk about as well. All right, so thanks. If you've got any questions, feel free. I'll try and keep up to date with those as we go. So here's a snapshot of growth. Been in the industry 17 years, as Michaela said. So these are sort of things that can happen. Put it this way, no, I haven't yet had a business owner come to me and say, Tim, I'm really confident you can help me to make $50,000 or $200,000 more profit. I really believe you can do that. I usually get the complete opposite that says, I don't think that's going to work for my business. I find all this stuff hard to believe, and I'm pretty cautious about all these promises. So they're the sort of clients that I get. So I like to see that difference of the turnaround for them in their lives and what difference I can make in a fairly short time. So these are just different businesses, different industries. I could sort of talk about a lot of different case studies, but these sort of give you an idea of businesses that were struggling, and like Wes here, ProSolve Construction down the bottom, was running at a loss, $100,000 loss, and we turned that into $220,000 net profit. And that was a business turning over about $1.4 million at the time. So it was a good turnaround, a $320,000 increase in his net profit, and that was achieved in about 5 or 6 months. So remarkable outcome. So these are the sort of things that I like to show business owners how to do. So if you like the sound of that, you're in the right place at the right time. So let's continue. So motivating staff, let's jump straight into it. I'm going to start with the fourth point first and talk a little bit about that and build on some of the other things as we go. So motivating staff, how do we actually motivate staff? Well, it's funny that if you think about it, your employees are people, your customers are people, your suppliers are people, and if you've got a business partner or a life partner, they're one of those people. So why aren't we studying psychology before we go into business? Because your ability to get the most out of people, to get the best out of people, that skill can make you a lot of money in business. So it's funny how we often overlook this, and it's something that I've put a lot of time and energy into myself, is really developing my people skills and understanding people, and especially studying this one word, behavior. I find that people are actually quite predictable when you really study people, and employees are predictable, and people that you meet are very predictable when you understand them. But often we get frustrated because we really don't understand them. So the more you study their behavior, the better you get at working with them, because if you know how well someone's going to cope with a task that you give them before you give them the task, it makes your life easier, it makes their life easier. So that's an incredible thing to learn more about. I'm a really big fan of attitudes, and if you've got a pen and paper, and I suggest you grab one if you haven't got one in front of you, because you'll probably want to take some notes on some of these things, but I define a great attitude as someone who has a willingness to engage you in a positive way. So when you ask them something, their first response is sure, because that's the demonstration of that willingness to engage you in a positive way. So these are people you can trust, and they're people you can rely on. So when you ask them something, they go, yeah, sure. And these are people I like to do business with, because they don't say yeah and then not do it. They don't debate whether it's necessary. They just pretty much say, yeah, that sounds great. How do we work it out? How do we do it? How do we work it out? So that's the sort of thing I like. So it's something that is just a key point to look for in business. When you're hiring anyone, hire on attitude first, because these people are teachable. Makes a big difference when you've got someone who's teachable versus someone that it's very hard to teach them anything. And if you relate to any of these things that I'm talking about, you might say yes with an exclamation mark or anything. Like, give me some feedback as we go. If you like some of the things I'm saying, it'd be good. And if you've got any questions, feel free as well. So write that definition down. The definition of a good attitude person, it took me years and years to figure out that simple statement. It's a willingness to engage you in a positive way. Really simple definition, but it's a really good test of every person you ever talk to. See if they want to engage, see if they acknowledge what you said, see if they contribute to the conversation. So great attitude employees can increase your profits significantly and rapidly. Now, if you've been in business 5 or so more years, I'm sure you can tell me some stories about poor attitude staff. It seems to be a pretty common thing in business. We don't really get excellent at picking really good attitudes before we hire them. A couple of months or 3 months later, we can find those poor attitude people. Often we're not seeing them when we hire them. So a really simple way of looking at employees that you may have is to see if you've got to ask them to do the same task more than twice. And it's a really simple thing. And I find that the business owners that say, no, I can ask them and I can rely on them and I will do it, and every now and again I might have to remind them a second time, they're the ones that they define as having really good attitudes. And that makes a massive difference to your business. If you've got people that you can trust, rely on, do what you ask them to do, and they'll say things like, well, I've got to work back because I said I'd do this, so therefore I'm going to work back until it's done because I know that they may be relying on me. That's the language structure of good attitude people. So how do we achieve that? Now, I'm not a big believer that you can actually change attitudes. I think attitudes are kind of like a fixed thing. It's not an easy thing to change an attitude, but trying to identify them is more important. Pick these people really good attitudes before we hire them. So these people say yes and they mean it. So when they say yes, they don't just give lip service and say, can you do this task? They go, yeah. And then they've forgotten it. And then you got to remind them, and then they get annoyed because you're reminding them. That's not the sort of good attitude people I'm talking about. Good attitude people, when they say something, they put emphasis. It's like a mental note. I said I would do this. Let's make sure I do it. And they actually absolutely do it, because they value being respected by other people. So they want to be valuable employees, well thought of. And that's a really wonderful thing to have. Now, I've got clients that have hired really good attitude people because I've shown them how to hire these really good attitude people in a lot of depth. And they say, we'll hire a great attitude person with average to lacking skills all day, every day, compared to hiring someone with really good experience that may have a questionable attitude. They say the difference is enormous. Give it 2 months. the good attitude person's up to speed in 2 or 3 or 4 months, and the poor attitude people were doing less work for a higher salary. So that's a simple way to increase your profits, is really put a lot of thought into that attitude trait. So if you like that, well, welcome Clinty if you've just arrived. Welcome anyone who's just arrived. You feel free to ask questions at any time. All right, so let's talk about motivating your staff. Now, does everyone agree with this simple principle that happy people are more productive people? Maybe even for yourself. If you're in a happier state of mind, do you feel like you can be more productive? You don't get sidetracked and procrastinate or all that sort of thing, get lost. So it's pretty much a fact that I've established for myself over the years, that happy people are more productive. And I ask business owners, do you agree? And they say, yes, I agree. So then my next question is, well, what's your happiness strategy so that you are making your employees more productive from making them happy? If we agree with this, then what are we doing to make people happier? How do we actually do that in a workplace environment? Now, as soon as you hire 1 employee or 2 or 3 or 5 or 30, whatever the number is, but as soon as you start hiring people, here's a strategy I recommend. So what happens is when people have to work with someone for a period of time, you may relate to this, then those people can start to become a little bit irritating over time. And often when we first meet people, we don't always click and we don't always like them. So what happens when we give that a lot more time, like add a few years into that mix of that initial, not that keen on this person, then we've got to work with these people for years. Well, what's happening to the productivity there? Well, one of the things I like to teach business owners is let's personality profile the staff. Let's get them to know each other on a human-to-human basis, not a role-to-a-role basis, and get to know them as a person. You find that by starting to personality profile people and sharing it with all the employees, they start to get along a lot better. That starts to increase the happiness. But there's something even better than that, which is this one here. Get all your employees together every week, sit them down and ask for their input on how they can improve their role in the business, how they can do their job better. Get them to talk amongst the rest of the employees, and everybody must talk, not just management talking and staff listening. Everyone needs to get involved with this discussion. Do that every week. You'll find that by doing this, they feel understood, they feel heard, they feel listened to and respected, and then they want to contribute more in the business. So that's a give to receive principle. It's been around for a long time. Simple principle, very, very effective. Now, I taught this to a mechanic up the Sunshine Coast, and he ran his first team meeting. He got everyone to talk, and it went so well. He said the productivity increased 50% in the next week. So if you increase your productivity, which is get more work done without paying people more money, what are you going to do with your profit? Sorry, Michaela, my slides weren't moving. Sorry about that. I thought I'd press the button. The button may not have worked. Okay, can you see it now?
All good now.
All right.
All good now.
Cool, thanks. Someone can't hear me. Peter can't hear me. Can you hear me now or not? Hello, hello, hello. Can everyone else, you can hear me all right, Michaela?
Yeah, sure.
There's a phone number on the email that you might have to ring. If you can't hear me, you might need to ring. Okay, I'll keep going. So this simple strategy, this mechanic introduced it, and his team, he was harping on a lot to his staff. Come on, you've got to increase your productivity, guys. We're not doing enough billable work. We need increased profits. He ran a team meeting, and all of a sudden, all the employees sort of went, "Oh, that was really good. Gee, that was beneficial, and yeah, got to know everyone better." And he said the productivity just naturally jumped 50%. So that's a pretty good outcome, 50% increase in profit from one strategy. So who likes that strategy? Who likes that strategy? Who's going to use that strategy? Yes, yes, yes.
Can you hear us, Tim?
I can hear someone talking, yes.
Yeah, it's Clinton. That sounds awesome. How do you suggest I'm doing it if you've got a team of people that aren't in the same area, if they're remote?
That's a bit tricky. There's a good app on phones you can buy called Zoom, and Zoom you can do it's like a little go-to meeting in a way, it's like Skype in a way, but it's a free app you can get on your phone, and you can do it that way so that people can see and tune in and things like that. So you can do it like that. That works really well. Because I've had a lot of clients with that same sort of circumstance where they can't get everyone physically in the same spot and things like that. So that's the way you can do it.
Yep, perfect.
And there's another thing. Yeah,
Sorry,
so I
sorry,
think
Michaela.
yeah, sorry. Other things like Google Hangouts and Skype and that you can also use to communicate with your staff. Being a virtual team ourselves, that's something we rely on and use every day to motivate and keep our staff happy and make sure they get to know everybody else on the team as well.
Yeah, because these days if you've got a phone, you can be in a web conference sort of thing. That's the beauty of our technology these days. So yeah, so that's the way. Thanks for the question. All right, so people, I recommend you use this. This is an awesome strategy. People just get happier straight away because they feel listened to. And the first meeting can sometimes go about double the length of any other meeting because sometimes people want to get things off their chest, so they can drag it out a bit. So keep that in mind. Don't get disconcerted because it drags out for so long, the first one. That's pretty standard. So just get used to that and give it a go. All right, so number one key to increasing profits is, I think, is measuring. I've found that the clients that I work with want to show them how to measure. It's extraordinary what happens really, really rapidly. All of a sudden you're dealing with the facts of your decision making. You find out what works, you find out what's not working. And it's not just measuring sales and marketing, there's a whole lot of other things that you can measure as well. But I find that it reveals opportunities to increase profits for free. So to me, the science of increasing profits is the science of measuring. If you want to improve something, well, let's find out what it is. So how do you improve something if you don't know what it is? So in business owners are often not measuring much. And because they're not measuring, well, they don't know what's working, what's not. There's a lot of things that they're just ignorant about because they're not measuring. Measuring proves the need for systems as well. So if you've got employees that you're trying to get to use systems, then when you measure, you'll find that if you keep doing it on a regular basis, and I recommend you measure weekly and bring numbers into a team meeting, you'll find that over time your employees will say, hey boss, I think we need systems because there's some numbers going up and down, we've got inconsistencies, why don't we have systems in here? Now this is a wonderful thing to hear when you've tried to get your team using systems and you're finding resistances there. So I've sort of tried all these strategies out of order with implementation. I've found that I always run team meetings before I talk about measuring, and I always talk about measuring before I talk about systems. But a lot of business owners try to get systems in, and the staff don't give a staff. That's why we call them staff sometimes. So if they don't give a staff about your business, then that's why they're probably not going to use the system. So if you run the team meetings first, you make your team members happier, then they're more interested in getting involved with numbers, then they're interested in seeing systems come in because they realize the need for it. So it's a very simple process, but very, very powerful. When you measure, you also find out what's working, what's not. Now, wouldn't it be good to know every single thing you ever did, whether it worked or not? And there's a lot of things that you do in a business on a daily basis. Wouldn't it be good to know what sort of things are working, what sort of strategies are working, what sort of activities are working, which employees are working, which ones aren't, which jobs are underpriced because they're taking too long? You learn incredible things from measuring, and it's just so obvious where the profits are in a business just from doing this. If you measure each individual employee's time on how long it takes to do tasks, you'll find that just by doing this, that their productivity increases. So whatever you're measuring, you get focused on. What you focus on is what you improve. So just by introducing measuring, I've had clients double their profits in a month just because they see things they never knew, and it was just so obvious what was working, what wasn't working, jobs that were under quota, where there was good profit jobs, what marketing was working, which people took too long to do certain jobs. There were so many things come out of it. I've witnessed so many clients over the years have very big profit jumps, like in weeks, sometimes in a week or two. They're already changing a lot of things because the facts are there. You can't argue with the facts. It just makes you want to do it. So hopefully you like the sound of increasing your profits.
So I'll just jump in there, Tim, and there's a number of programs and recommendations that we can help you with that, with helping to measure employees' times, especially for guys that are on the road. Either talk to myself, or I know Clinton from TradiePad is on the call as well, who specialise in doing all that kind of stuff for job management for the guys on the road. And you can really start to, by recording their time, look at the profit and loss that you have from each job. So it's really important. I can't agree with that point more, to measure the time your blokes are actually spending on the jobs, and that helps you price accordingly and increase your profits that way. So really, really key. So if you have any questions about that, please let us know afterwards. We'll be able to help out.
It's something that, Michaela, I get into as well. I sort of collate. So sometimes you need the tools like an app that sort of says, well, let's track the time. And then I sort of collate it into really powerful measuring tools. So it's incredible what you can learn from doing that. So, yeah. So let's continue on a bit on this subject because it's a fascinating subject. So the number one principle of business is something that I find that businesses are often struggling for cash flow. In fact, it's probably one of the greatest challenges in business is I don't have enough cash in the bank. I'm struggling for cash. But they're not real aware of certain things that affect the cash flow. So sometimes they're treating the symptoms. They're not treating the cause of what the problems are in business. I'll give you some examples. There's a terminology in business called net profit margin. So if I said to you, what is your business's net profit margin from the last financial year, could you give me the answer? Not that I want it, but could you give me the answer? Now, I've found that 7 out of 10 people, 8 out of 10 people in business can't tell me their answer to that. They'll say, some people say, I'm not sure what you mean. Some people say, I'm not real sure. And I'll get a very small minority that will say, yeah, I know what my net profit margin is. So let me talk a little bit about that. So what happens in businesses over time, if you look at a profit and loss statement of a business, say in 3 years' time, the turnover is typically going up. Not always, but typically it's going up if it's going up. And then you look at the figures, the total sales, $500K to $2 million, and then you look at the bottom of the profit and loss statement, you look at the net profit in the business, and the net profit might be showing $75K and it's increased to $150K. So give a business a bit of time and the turnover will increase, yeah, if the marketing's working, things like that. So what happens is the business owner says, well, turnover's up, that's good. Net profit's up, that's good. Business is going well. And that's about as far as they actually go. But when you get a calculator out, you divide 75,000 into 500,000 and then you divide 150,000 into 2 million, all of a sudden you're getting a 15% net profit margin, which is the percentage of net profit. It's gone from 15% down to 7.5%. It's actually hard. Now, this is when businesses start to run out of cash flow, and they don't know it's happening most of the time. They don't know the net profit margin is going down because it's hidden in dollars. The dollars are showing increases, so they're going, well, profits are up, turnovers are great. Then I'll say, how come I'm struggling for money in the bank? In fact, how come my turnover's increased and I'm not paying myself anymore, and I'm finding it harder and harder to have money to pay my bills? So this is a subject that I've studied in depth for a long time, and I've found that 90% of businesses, once they reach about 700,000 turnover, 90% of businesses are operating under 10% net profit margin. Now, when you're under 15, you will nearly always struggle for cash flow. And that's taken me a long time, and had a lot of accountants as clients and hundreds of business owners and looking at hundreds of profit and loss statements to be able to draw that conclusion that we want to be at 15% net profit margin. That's the minimum you want to be at once your turnover hits 700,000. Now, if you're turning over 300,000, you might go, well, Tim, mine's 30%. I'll go, yeah, it typically is high at the start, but it's dropping like a rock all the way up to 700K. You know, at 100,000 turnover, you're probably running a 50% net profit margin. But you'll find that the net profit margin keeps decreasing as your turnover increases, and you might be at 10% at 700,000 or 15, and then you hit $1 million, and it's dropped another few percent. You hit $2 million, and all of a sudden it's down to 5%. You hit $10 million, and all of a sudden it's down to 3%. Now, this is incredibly common with businesses. So what I'm specializing in with what I provide in this training that you're seeing is how to increase net profit margins, not just let's increase customers, let's increase staff, let's increase turnover, and we're making money from that. Well, I say turnover is not real money. Turnover is activity. Profit is real money in business. Profit's what's paying your bills, that sort of thing. So this is something that I find that accountants are not telling their clients. It's not something that's commonly talked about in our society, but it's something that transforms a business when you really increase that net profit margin. So let's talk about some of the things that we can do to achieve that outcome. Is anyone wondering what their net profit margin is about now? Is anyone thinking, wonder what mine is? I recommend you look it up and find out and compare the last 3 years and be really clear of what that figure is. So that's why I'm into let's increase profits but without spending any money. So we're not risking any capital, which is great if we don't have a lot of money to spend on things that are meant to grow our business, because there's not too many guarantees if I spend money I'm always going to make money. So let's talk a bit about that. A process that I use with my business owner clients when I'm working with them You might do this yourself if you can, fantastic, but you might want to take some notes on this as well. This is a process I work through. So the first thing is I look at the minimum gross margin that they need to sell at. What do you need to sell? Everything you sell at. Now for retail, it's pretty easy, but as soon as you cross that line into service manufacturing businesses, what a lot of business owners don't consider is the labour is a cost of sale, and they're not costing that into the sale price to get a minimum gross margin. Yeah? So it means to do this, you've got to do a lot of work to look at a P&L, profit and loss statement, figure out what's a cost of sale, what isn't a cost of sale. It's some pretty advanced stuff. It's called management accounting, and really spend a lot of time working this out. Now, it can take an hour just to work this out. It's not a 5-minute quick fix, but it's the first thing you need to know, because if you want to increase your net profit margin, you've got to sell at a minimum gross and net profit margin. And it's the number one reason why businesses are struggling for cash flows, because their net profit margin is low. Their net profit margin is low because it directly relates to their sale price, and their sale price is often a bit of a guess. It's these are my costs. How lucky do I feel? How desperate am I? What do I usually charge? That sounds like a pretty good price. And that's how I find the majority of business owners are pricing that way. So this is the first step. Second one is that you measure the gross margin of every job. So you got a sale price and you take out the labour cost, which is labour cost per hour, multiplied by how many hours they work. Take off the actual material cost, work out gross margin on every job. Only by measuring every job can you actually say, now I know my gross margin on the job. Because pricing is the theory. In a service manufacturing, it's a theory. The third thing is, what I like to do with business owners is then segment and go, well, hang on, you don't just sell one thing, you sell a lot of things. Let's segment your business into what I call production types of things that you sell. And then we're going to measure the gross margin on all these different types, and we'll see trends. You'll find that the 80-20 rule kicks in, where 80% of what you do isn't that profitable, 20% is, and there might be 5% that's double or triple the profit margin of everything else that you sell. So we want to identify that and start to see those trends by doing this. The fourth one is by finding out where the real big margin areas of the business is. You might have something that might have double or triple the net profit and gross margin. Well, why don't we increase sales on that niche area of the business? Let's not market the whole business necessarily. We can, and I agree, yes, marketing the whole business is a good thing. But what would happen if we turn that 10% that was really high margin into 50% of your volume? Well, this is how I'm doubling and tripling net profit margins in a business without getting more staff, without getting a lot more customers, just by transitioning what we're doing internally in the business. Then we might crank up the marketing from a lead generation point of view, and then you can generate a lot of profit. So if your net profit margin is 5% and then you double your turnover, you're going to have a lot more profit, a lot more money in the bank than what you will if you double your turnover and your net profit margin's 5%. So is everyone following me on some of these things I'm talking about? I might be going a little bit fast for some people, but are people following what I'm saying here? Is everyone sort of keeping up with some of these principles? Because this is incredibly powerful stuff, yeah? Yes? Thank you. Anyone else? All good? Very good. Excellent. Very good. Okay, excellent. So there's some real magic in this. I've probably made it a little bit simpler what it is. There is some kind of rocket science in this, but I find a lot of business owners, because I've worked with a lot of business owners, a lot of business owners, I've found the majority of them don't understand what is the cost of sale, what isn't. They don't understand their chart of accounts. They haven't been set up by a management accountant. They're not set up properly, so they don't really look at them, and they don't understand numbers generally. Some people use systems to price things, which is great. And if you're doing some of this, great, but this can be taken to a really, really high level. This is where you find a lot of profit in the business, and increasing profit margins is where it all begins. You can't improve it if you don't know what it is. Find out your net profit margin, then let's look at how we're going to improve this. So this is sort of what I call a process. A process is kind of big chunky steps of how to do things. So let's go into a bit more detail. So if you like this, you'll like what I'm going to talk about. So let's talk about measuring sales and marketing, and how do we actually do that? Well, here's a screenshot of a spreadsheet that I like to show people how to measure really, really effectively. So this is a screenshot of a real business, and this is 2 months accumulative, or 8 weeks. So in 8 weeks, it's generating 202,000 or 209,000 in total. That's the total sales here. So it's doing about 105,000 a month, and that's going to vary up and down a bit, of course. Now, when people see numbers, a lot of time they get a little bit, I don't like numbers, I don't understand them, sort of thing. But when I see numbers, I see opportunities everywhere. So you may not see it, but I'm looking at this going, wow, look at all the opportunities to really, really grow this business rapidly by applying strategies to these numbers, which are where the opportunities are. So here's 5 of these ones that I'm touching on. So I look at what I call conversion rate by lead source. So conversion rate by lead source is this conversion rate, the first conversion rate. How many phone calls turn into actual quotes? And that's a measure of the quality of the lead source. So some lead sources are obviously better than others, and that's a measuring exercise in itself. But what it shows me here is this website probably needs renewing because their overall conversion rate of people that give quotes to the people that buy, 42%, is a lot lower than some of these other areas. So I go, okay, this lead source, the website, how old's the website would be my first question. He said, oh, it's a few years old now. I go, okay, well, that conversion rate of your marketing is not warming people up enough, so therefore that says your website may need renewing. This is a business that gives them a lot of work, and you can see it's a pretty substantial chunk of work. It's about $6.5 a month, $7 a month, and we're seeing that the conversion rate is not as high as what some of the other lead sources are. So therefore, if we went and educated this business owner and said, hey, this is the sort of work we do, these are the, and really sort of help them to understand the people they're referring, we can increase this conversion rate here just from doing that as well. Average number of days to win a sale, which is over here on the far right. The good thing about that, when it's a low figure, which it is, generally for a lot of business, this could be 4 weeks, or I've had clients where it's 6 months. From the date they give a quote to a sale acceptance is typically 6 months. But in this, because it's such a short time frame, we could potentially test a price rise, and we're going to know really quickly, is price something that your customers are sensitive to? Because who thinks that maybe if they put their price up, they're going to lose a lot of customers? Does anyone here think that? It's a pretty common belief that business owners have, but if I put my price up, I'm going to lose a lot of customers. So they get a bit concerned with doing that. We're not talking retail here. We're talking about more service manufacturing. So because they're sort of worried about putting their prices up, but that's a fear that is not based on evidence. So I've had a lot of clients say, oh, I don't like to put my price up. I'm worried about losing too many customers. And I say, well, let's find out. And what's going to go down is typically conversion rate. So, and in this business, because we're finding out within a very short period of time, we can put the prices up for a week, and within a week you'll see if you're going to lose sales or not and whether you are. So it's really, really informative. If you look at the Google AdWords, for this particular business, they were outsourcing it, and they weren't outsourcing it to a good quality service provider, and so they're spending money here, but they weren't getting much ROI. So it sort of said it wasn't working too well. And if you look at the trade referrals here, they get a lot of trade referrals here. The first column's existing clients, but the next one, the trade referrals. And the tradies that they're getting work from are referring a lot of work, and they're getting a really good conversion rate. Now, most businesses have sales coming in from other people that are referring people to them, but most people are passive about it. They're not saying that's the best marketing strategy there is go and get more referrals from other businesses, not customers, other businesses, and crank this up. So I've had clients get so many referrals from other businesses, they don't need to do much advertising. They do a little bit to keep their presence there, but they actually diminish some of their advertising because they're getting so many from that. So it's a very interesting thing to look at, is getting more sales from other industries, other businesses that have a similar target market to you. All right, so there's a few strategies just to think about that I could probably talk for another half an hour on all the things I see. I look at the average dollar sale. Okay, the average dollar sale's got a little bit to do with the amount of trust generated from the lead source. So what could we do from that? That's why their average dollar sale is very high for existing clients coming back, and then it drops off a bit for other lead sources. So there's some really interesting stuff to really look at in this snapshot of just basic measuring. This is not even the advanced stuff. Let's talk about that a little bit more. So where I find a lot of hidden profit, I've had some pretty phenomenal testimonials all the way back to 1997 when I got into business coaching as an industry. And I found there's always profit to be found with this area here. In service manufacturing businesses, even retail, majority of all businesses, 90% of all businesses, there's a huge amount of opportunity to find profit by working on their conversion rate. So a lot of people believe this. So if I put my prices up, I'm going to lose sales. In other words, their conversion rate drops. That's what most people kind of feel, that I'm not making much money, but I can't put my price up. I'm going to lose too many customers. So what if we increase conversion rates first? Let's do the opposite. Let's increase your conversion rates instead of worrying about dropping them. Let's increase your conversion rates. Then what would you do if you had too many customers all of a sudden? Let's say you deal with 20 customers a week and all of a sudden you got 30 or 40. What are you going to do about that? You've really got kind of three choices, haven't you? You can say, sorry customers, we can't do the work. That's not very good for business. Or you can say, gee, I need to hire someone really quick because I got too much work. Or, gee, we got too much work. Fantastic. Now I can charge a little bit more because it's sort of supply and demand. I can charge a little bit more and see if I scare off some customers. And that's why I mean it's a zero profit risk. There's no risk of losing profit because you've got too much work. You can't do it. So it's an opportunity created from increasing your conversion rates first. So therefore, this is a very exciting way to look at growing your business without any risk of putting your prices up. Let's get you too many customers. And instead of hiring new staff or extra staff, let's think about a price rise and increase that net profit margin. So measuring conversion rates a little bit more, going back to that slide I just showed you, that real live business, what I did was say, well, let's measure the conversion rates of each individual salesperson. So what you're seeing here is the first salesperson, second one, third one, fourth one, and an average overall of 61%. So they've got a pretty good conversion rate, really. But I said, well, hang on, if two people are over 84 and 88, well, hang on, if two people are, well, we've already proven that the other two people can be as well, because people are people. The way you answer the phone, the way you talk to people, that technique dramatically affects your conversion rate. So we can improve that. And just by doing some basic math, if we get these other two, because it's already two out of four are doing it, if these other two can get to 84%, when you do the math of this, it works out to be $600,000 increase in sales per year. For a business that's turning over about 1.2 mil, we've increased the turnover 50%, and with good sales training, you can get that increase in happening so rapidly in 1 to 2 months. You can actually do that sort of thing. So what do you think the business owner said when I said, well, hang on, let's look at these numbers, and well, hang on, you got two people doing 84% or more. Do you think you'd be interested in investing in some sales training to get the other two up to that? And look at the numbers, look at the math. How do you think the business owner responded to that question? Do you think he thought that was a pretty good investment? Do some sales training for one day, maybe a couple of days, and to realize some of that potential, even if you only got half the potential, even if you only made $300,000 more in sales? Do you think you'd be pretty happy about investing in 1 day of training to achieve that? What do you think, people? Do you think that'd be worthwhile? Spend a bit of money, spend a few thousand or a couple of thousand or something like that and make $300,000? That's a pretty good ROI, isn't it? Well, when I showed him these numbers, he pretty much said, Tim, how do we do that? Well, that's what we did. So it's about seeing the opportunities from measuring, but then applying a strategy to that opportunity when we measured it. The other thing I want to do is I track sales by a production type. So this is the same business. I've kind of hidden all these fields because it's a bit of privacy here. So I segment business into those production types that I've just touched on here, and this is sort of a monthly summary, and you can see what's going on here where the conversion rate by the production type is very, very interesting to look at. So if you look at the conversion rate by a type of thing that they're selling, 100%, 89, 93, 100, and it goes down to 49%. So it goes from 49 to 100. So by measuring the types of productions and looking at conversion rate by type, we can now say, well, hang on, we've got a 100% conversion rate. Why don't you put your price up on that? And if you put your price up a little bit, well, that could probably even afford to drop a bit, but you're still going to make more profit from that price rise. So by showing the business owner these numbers, I didn't have to persuade him or convince him. He just said, gee, if we're making that higher conversion rate, then, well, it looks like we're not going to lose anything by putting our prices up. So it's that zero risk opportunity to increase your profits. Yeah? So from looking at this, I want to research into why are we winning sales. And you just ask people, why do you choose to go with us? Why do you like buying from us? And when they don't buy from you, ask them, well, why didn't you go with us? Why did you go with someone else? Simply asking those questions reveals enormous things to improve your conversion rate, yeah? So it increases conversion rates rapidly by looking at this and applying some strategies. Within a day or 3 or 5, even 7, you're going to see a change in these figures if there's going to be a change from developing some of these strategies. So, is there any questions on that, anyone? Does everyone sort of like the sound of that? Any questions that you got along that as we go?
Just one thing a lot of my clients don't do is actually ask why they don't win the sale. And I think that's such a critical question that you need to ask.
Absolutely.
Because how can you increase your conversion rate without knowing why you're not winning the jobs in the first place? So
Absolutely.
it all comes back to following up and asking that question, because really it's just educating you to make more sales in the future.
Absolutely. And that's where I do some sales training, and I've run a lot of sales training for a lot of years, and it's not pushy, aggressive. I can't stand that. It's really get to know people, and if they like you, they're probably going to buy from you, because you don't tend to buy from people you don't like. You tend to buy from people you do like. So I teach that rapport technique, and the difference can be dramatic. I've got clients that are selling. I had a client come up from Sydney. He sells $7,000 items. He is a window and door manufacturer, and he come up and he brought 3 salespeople to a training. And he said afterwards, he said, I have not lost one sale over $20,000 jobs, and before he said I was almost never seeing them. So he said, I've won 8 jobs over $20,000 average dollar sale, or $20,000 sales from a bit of sales training. So makes an enormous difference. But yeah, you're right, Michaela. You need to find out why you're winning jobs as well as why aren't you using. And if you don't know what you don't know, you can't do much about it. So you've got to find out why you're not winning those sales. So yeah, absolutely. It's something that you provide that service, don't you, Michaela? Is that something you provide? Of course.
Yes, we do. And the other thing is actually asking where the lead come from. I find that's a question that's not asked enough as well. So making sure every call you get, you should always be getting where that lead came from, obviously their contact details, but their email address as well.
Absolutely.
3 critical things that you really need to get.
Absolutely. That's why, yeah,
that's something we do.
That's all the things that I sort of teaching business owners. So to fill this spreadsheet, and you've got to ask those sort of things and find those sort of things out. So yeah. So the best profit strategy is if your net profit margin's 5%, let's just throw a scenario at you. A lot of people don't understand the math of price rise. So if your net profit margin was 5%, irrespective of what your turnover is, what do you think it would be after a 10% price rise? Have a guess, anyone. Type it in a box or say it if you like. I'm curious to see what your guess would be. If you know, great. If you don't, what would your guess be? What would your estimate be? Do you think it'd be 5.5% or 6% or 8%, or what do you think it might be? It's a very interesting question. Anyone like to have a guess? 7%? Very good, Catherine, thanks. 10%? Okay, so it's not actually something that's talked about in our society very much. And when I first worked it out I pulled a spreadsheet and had a really good look, I was a bit gobsmacked at the difference it makes, and I checked my formulas, and yeah, that's right, okay, oh wow. And I've been thinking over the years all the price increases I've introduced to the hundreds of businesses I've worked with, and been a bit gobsmacked at what a difference I've been making to their net profit margin. So we've got a few different answers here. Catherine, Elizabeth, you're doing pretty well. Did you work that out? Is that a guess, or is that a calculation that you managed to work out? Tell me you worked it out, didn't you? Yeah, of course you did. All right, so let's say your turnover is $1 million and your net profit margin was 5, then obviously your net profit's $50,000. That's your 5% of $1 million. So after a price rise, here's the math. The net profit margin would be 13.6, and the net profit would be $136,000. So let me explain it to you quickly. 10% price rise means customers are spending 10% more on average, because that's a 10% price rise, which means that your turnover has now gone to 1.1 million. That $100,000 increase adds directly to your net profit that you already had, which is the 50 grand. Now it's 150 grand. And if you divide 150 grand by 1.1 million, you get 13.6. That's the math. So Catherine, Elizabeth, you were the closest. Congratulations. Well done. But it's all profit. And that's what people don't quite get, that if your net profit margin is a bit low, you're struggling for cash, you're going to struggle to one day increase your price, and then you start solving the problem very quickly. Yeah. And if you think about it, which is more important, marketing, getting more customers, getting more sales, hiring more staff, and increasing your turnover, or more profit? Because to make that 136,000 as turnover increase, you'd have to be turning over 2.5 million. You'd have to have more than double the staff to make the same profit by doing it through increasing sales, increasing turnover. Does everyone get that? That's why I stopped focusing on increasing sales with my clients. I started increasing profit margins and doing it really, really effectively and rapidly. So let's talk a bit more about that. So if we can increase our conversion rates, it creates a situation where we get too many customers. What do you do when you got too many customers? Well, either you say, sorry, can't do the work. You do overtime, which means you're pretty much paying time and a half. What happens if you're paying time and a half on something that was sold without time and a half factoring in the labour costs? That means every time you do overtime, you're making a big loss. So doing overtime, I don't recommend overtime because you're making a loss when you do. And this is why some businesses at their busiest time, they do all this work, do all this overtime, they go bankrupt a month or two later because they ran out of cash because they paid it all in the time and a half salaries, and they're not tracking these things. So very interesting scenario. So we want to get our prices up, but we want to do it risk-free. How do we do that? Let's get too many customers, and then instead of hiring more people, yeah, we can do that a little bit down the track, but let's get our prices up and get that net margin up to 15 to 20, 25% net margin, and you solve your cash flow problems when you get it up to those sort of figures. So how do we get the sales up? We need to focus on conversion rate strategy. So let's start getting specific with some of those. Now, did anyone watch the video that I sent you, or Michaela sent you initially, which sort of talked about one of the 7 red hot marketing strategies to increase your profits? In that video, and he went for 3 or 4 minutes, it talked about exactly how to answer the phone. Did anyone watch that video? If so, did you do exactly what it said? Because what I teach in how to answer the phone, it can increase your conversion rates. I've had clients increase conversion rate 17%, which is a 17% increase in turnover, just from how they answer the phone and being happier, upbeat by saying this: thank you for calling, business name. This is first name. So thanks for calling Profit Transformations. This is Tim. Don't say the word speaking. Don't add can I help you. Don't say anything else. That's exactly the wording you use. Now, I've tested the wording of how to answer the phone for 15 years. Hundreds of businesses, that's the best way to answer the phone, and it can jump your sales 15 to 17% as a result of that. Does that sound pretty good? Who's excited by that? Someone hopefully is. Yay, woohoo. That's the way. Good. Well, there you go. That's a simple way. So it goes, thank you for calling, business name. This is first name. That's it. Say nothing else. That's all you say. Nothing else. Don't change it. Just that. Test it. Try it out tomorrow and see what happens. The next thing is, when they ring up and ask you a question, do you realize they're sitting there trying to go, what's the most intelligent question I can ask so I don't look like a dummy, so I get taken advantage of? I've got to figure out something intelligent. Do you sell such and such? Yes, we do. Oh, does it come in blue? Yes, it does. Do you have it in stock? Yes. When could you do it? How much does it cost? I've run out of questions. That's what customers are actually doing a lot of the time. Think about it when you do this. You ring a business you've never bought in that industry before. You're trying to figure out what to ask them. Well, it's like going to a doctor and saying, doctor, I've got a pain in my knee, and I've been trying to figure out what it is. Is it broken? No, I don't think it's broken. Okay. Is it a torn ligament then? No, I wouldn't be talking about. It's kind of a funny scenario if you're the one asking the question to the expert, the authority. But I see business owners who are trying to answer customers' questions, and then they call them time wasters. It's like, hang on, who's the authority? You are. Don't answer people's questions when they call. Ask them questions. Take the leadership role. You go to a doctor, doctor, I've got a pain in my knee. Okay, let's diagnose the problem. And they ask you a whole lot of questions. That's good selling. That's what I teach people how to do. I teach people how to ask really good quality questions. So you position yourself as a leader and I go, wow, you understand my needs. You must be able to help me. When can we do business? That's the effect that it has. So that's a really good, powerful strategy. Get into asking them questions from that initial phone call when they ring up and ask you a question. Don't answer it, ask them, and you'll be amazed at the difference. The next one is qualify who you do quotes for. I asked this question to business owners. You ever done a quote for someone in hindsight you've realised it was a complete waste of time? Yes. Good. Well, what are those reasons? Oh, not ready to do it. Can't afford it. Don't sell what they really want. Okay, good. Turn those into questions then. That's what you ask people when they ring up. You ask them those qualifying questions instead of finding out after you've done the quote you're wasting your time doing the quote for people that were probably never going to buy, and maybe they just wanted a rough idea of price. Qualify who you do quotes for. That's a real science in itself. I often run about a 68% conversion rate of incoming leads to actual quotes. That's about the ratio I run for a lot of renovation industries that are selling things from $5,000 to $15,000 to homeowners. That's very common. And when I meet them, they're often doing 90% of inquiries into quotes. Well, that's just wasting a whole lot of time. So, yeah. Be the first to quote. This is the early bird catches the worm. Your conversion rate will be 15 to 25% higher if you are the first person to get there and talk about price and things like that. So that's a good conversion rate strategy. Always give the price on the spot. Doesn't matter if it takes you 2 months to figure out how to give the price on the spot. Do not talk to people and go into a nice dialogue and then say, I'll leave you with it and I'll email you through the price. Don't do that. That hurts your conversion rate dramatically. So these are the strategies. Again, figure out how to give them the price on the spot. I give people spreadsheets of how to do the price on the spot, show them how to use it, customize it, and there's a system that anyone in your business can price using these sort of tools. So you can definitely do this sort of stuff. Here's another conversion rate strategy. Your potential customers are probably frustrated with your industry. I don't know if anyone here has been let down by a tradie, but I know I have more than once. And, hi, I need a quote. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll be there later. And they turn up an hour or two later. There's a lot of frustrations people have with certain industries. Well, if you guarantee that's not a frustration, then all of a sudden you start to win more sales as a result. Kim, did you have a question? I saw a note there from Kim. Or was that just a comment? No? Okay. So guarantees, really simple thing. Guarantee we'll be on time at your place to do the quote, or we'll pay you $50 cash. Put that on your website. Put that in your advertising. Wait and see the dramatic difference you get from guaranteeing you'll be on time to do the quote, or you're paying $50 cash if you're late. See the dramatic difference it does to increase your leads and your conversion rate from doing that. It's a very interesting thing to do. I've done it with over 100 businesses years and years ago in Yellow Pages. I used to write into the Yellow Pages ad, and they double the response to their ad and often increase their conversion rate 20 to 50% from putting those statements into their advertising. Very, very powerful. You can do it on websites these days. Do it wherever you like. Okay, broke. Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of my clients. So I say, you got 2 months to get up to speed, and then we're going to do it. 2 month warning, then we're going to do it. So, yeah.
That damn man time.
Sorry?
That damn man time.
Yeah, well, yeah, man time. Yeah, you can do it. It's, if you put 5 quotes in a row, you can't. But if you got 1 or 2 quotes in a row, you can typically always do it. I've had a lot of clients. I could tell you a lot of stories about that, but in the interest of saving time, I'll keep going. Another one is develop your unique selling proposition. Now, answer me this question: why should I buy from you and not your competitor? And most people reply with, well, because we're better. I go, well, that's what they say. Well, we do good work. That's what they say. So you've got to tell me something that no competitors would tell me if I asked them that question. Now, I stump about 95% of business owners with that one question. Now, I love it when someone asks me, because I go, how long you got? Because I'm so not like my competitors in so many ways that I don't really have competitors to do what I do. So I've kind of focused on this one point and really, really developed it a lot over years. So not many people talk about increasing your net profit margins and then showing you how to hire really good attitude staff so your business can run without you. Not many people teaching how to do that. That's sort of some of what I do. So this is a big question mark, because if you can't answer it, then people are going to go, well, why should I pay more for you than someone else? Then you're stuck with a bit of that competitive pricing and all that, which gets a bit ugly. So then you're going to start discounting to win jobs, and all because of this one subject, yeah? So developing your USP and having awesome customer service is a USP, because awesome customer service is uncommon in our society. And it's like the window door manufacturer. I said, you turn up on time, you be friendly on the phone, greet people the way I've said, ask them some questions on the phone instead of answering them, book a time to see and be there as quick as you can, turn up on time. Your ability to win the job, even before you give them a quote, now has increased dramatically. And they're winning jobs at $2,000 and $3,000 and $5,000 more. They told me about a job they won for $14,000. The next quote was $7,000. That's interesting stuff. So you put all this together as a package and all of a sudden your profit margins are 20-25%. All right. So hopefully you got some strategies from this webinar that have got you thinking. Who's got some strategies that have got them thinking? And just a refresher, we talked a little bit about measuring, we talked a little bit about people, we talked a little bit about systems, and to me these are the 3 core skills of management. You put this together where you run weekly team meetings, you bring numbers into the meetings, and numbers for production, numbers for cash flow, numbers for sales and marketing. That's the 3 areas of a business that you measure. And you talk about these numbers in the meetings, you'll start talking about systems and your profit margins just start to jump. It's extraordinary how fast they jump when you start developing this methodology I'm talking about here. We talked about how prices affect your profit margins the most. So we want to increase your prices because that is the best way to increase your margins there is. So the way to do that is we need to get into conversion rates, strategies, things like that. Get you too much work and then go, okay, we've got too much work. We've got nothing to lose by a bit of a price rise here. Or you can segment the types of work that you do as I talked about and then maybe price rise incrementally on little bits and pieces to increase the whole average. Or the strategy which I touched on will find that 10 or 20% of your turnover that's got really high margin and let's just market that and turn that into 50 or 80 or 100% of your work that you do and stop doing the other one over time and transition over 6 months. You can double your net margins like that as well. Now, if you double your net margins, you double your net profit. And if you double your net profit, you put so much money in your bank. I've had clients say, Tim, what do I do with all this money in my bank? I don't know what to do with it. I said, well, that's not my department. My department is to get the money in your bank. You figure out what you're going to spend it on once it's there. But I've had clients say, I got $120,000 in cash in the bank. I don't know what to do with it. And it keeps going up all the time. And it was this is an accountant that did some training and he doubled his profits without even using any marketing strategies, just from measuring and finding out what works, firing out what doesn't, all sorts of things. And he rang me up 6 months later and said, Tim, I don't know what to do with all this money in my bank. I go, well, so financial planner, I don't know, invest it somewhere. You know, buy property, buy shares, do something with it, but don't just leave it in your bank account. Leverage your money. That's kind of the next tier of things. Who would like to have that problem? They don't know what to do with all the money in their bank. Does anyone here like to have that problem?
Yes, please.
It's a different kind of problem. We can always have problems, but maybe there's different types of problems that are better than others. So this is a big strategy. So management to me, if you said, what is business management? I say, well, it's 3 things. Getting to work, that's called sales. Doing the work, that's called production. And getting paid for the work, that's the cash flow. So to me, management is all 3 subjects, but unfortunately, business owners are excellent at one of the 3, doing the work. They spend years and years and years learning the trade, learning the technical work, but they're not very good at getting to work, and they're not very good at getting paid for the work, but they're really good at one of those 3. Well, I say, well, hang on, management is about all 3 and measuring all 3 and looking at what the numbers say. Look at what the numbers tell you need to implement a strategy as a solution, improve the numbers, and then create a nice balance of the 3. That, to me, is management. So that's sort of the things that I sort of talk about with business owners. So if you apply the things that I've just taught you in this webinar, who thinks that they're going to increase their profit a little bit or a lot in the next week or month or so? Who feels that maybe by applying some of these strategies that can happen? And especially maybe if we do a bit of a replay and I sort of send you out a recording so you can go over some of the bits we might went a bit fast. Who thinks that if we did these strategies, you're going to start doing it? All right. So I'm seeing some doable and sure. Great. All right. So I can't teach you everything I know in an hour, can I? It's probably going to be a bit hard. But what I like to do is talk about a next step. So who'd like to learn more about doubling your profit and cash in your business? Who'd like to do that? So Danny, you just increase your prices, just need more customers. Okay, excellent. All right, so I'd like to talk about a next step. It may be ready for some of you, it may not be ready for some of you. That's okay. I'm not going anywhere. I've been around for a long time, so when you are. But let me tell you what it is that you can do on the next step. I call it the business certainty training system, and what it is, it's a system. It's not me philosophizing. It's actually a extremely systematic way of giving you the instructions on how to manage a business, not just the market. I mean, manage the whole business, and that's what it is. So, and I call it the business certainty because I find business owners are guesstimating their prices. They're not sure whether they're going to be a good employee before they hire them. They're not sure what's making them money, what's not. They're running a lot of doubt and uncertainty. But when you start making really certainty-based decisions, your profits jump fast. And if you can run your business with certainty, your whole life starts to improve because you're not getting pulled into thinking about your business. That's why I call it the business certainty training. So it's a complete course to increase your profits, free up your time, give you certainty with all your pricing, staff, and management decisions. So certainty is how you start controlling your business and your life. So how it works is I go through 7 different subjects because business owners often say, I want more money, Tim. Can you help me to make more money? And I found there were 7 things that I had to go through to find out how to make them more money. So a vision is the first thing I want to talk about. They say, well, how can we make more money? What's your strategy? I go, well, no. Well, before we talk about it, I want to know why you're in business. What are you trying to achieve? What's destination point B? You're at point A. What does destination point B look like? Now, this is a really important thing to do that I found most business owners, if I say exactly what are your goals in the next 1, 2, and 5 years, are they in writing? Can you show them to me? Nearly every business owner I meet says, oh, no, they haven't are. So I say this, commonality creates unity. When you have things in common with people, it brings you closer together. So unfortunately what's happening in a business is business owners are trying to grow their business, but it's like a secret for their staff. Well, I say, well, it can't be a secret. Let's talk about what you want to do in your business. Then we go into a team meeting and show you how to run these team meetings, how to personality profile people, how to understand attitudes. So give you documents that say, read this, and this defines a good attitude, what a good attitude is, and give that to your staff and see what they think. All these sort of things are part of that team building. Measuring is the next step because when you warm your staff up, make your staff a little bit happier, then they get more interested in measuring. Now measuring is easy to do. Years ago, I'd start working with the business owner and say, we need to measure. They go, sure. I give them the tools and I go, my staff don't want to know about it. Oh, okay. We need to warm the staff up, turn them into a team that are interested in growing their business. Then we can introduce measuring. So then we find the really obvious things of, gee, 20% of what I do is making a big loss. I'm going to have to stop doing it because there's no money in it. Or, wow, look at all the profit I'm making on that. I didn't know there was that much profit in it. Obvious ways to increase profit comes from measuring. Planning is what you do after measuring because planning is where you sequence a whole lot of strategies and then you start to grow your business from strategy implementation. So that comes after measuring. Then from measuring, you start to realize you need systems, and then we want the team using the systems. Now we're ready to do the explosive growth sales and marketing strategies. Marketing to me warms people up to contact your business, and then salespeople on the phone, face-to-face, they convert them. So that's that. Then we get into management and move business owners out of production, out of sales and pricing and all that sort of stuff, out of admin, out of finance. Let's get into management because management is a 3 to 5 day a week job. It's virtually a full-time job. Business owners don't do enough management of their business. They're typically running that busyness of being in production. But management is looking at numbers, analysing and strategizing. Analyse, strategize, analyse, strategize. Got to have the numbers to do that. So that's 7-step. This is a 7-step process. I've figured out that I take people through. That's what the business certainty training is all about. Taking people through all 7 subjects in that order, and profits start increasing from the first or second step. The third step, I've had people from step 3 to step 5 double the net profit from step 3 to step 5. They just bang, they just find things straight away that they can improve on the business. So how it works is I do this as an online. So you're in a go-to meeting. A go-to webinar is where you can't see the presenter. This is a go-to meeting, and it's the first one I run. But I run these as an online course. So like you're seeing me now, then you'd have a webcam, and then it would be like this. But there'd be a PowerPoint here, and I go through my PowerPoint presentation. You get workbooks. You fill them in as we go. You're getting all the instructions that you normally don't get from any other training. People don't give you the instructions of how to implement. It's usually long discussions, whereas I'm different. I'm like training you on how to implement, and there's the instructions and read them, and all sorts of amazing things happen. So we meet for 3.5 hours a fortnight. We do it as an online video training format. It runs for 15 sessions over 7 months. So get through a lot of content in 3.5 hours. But because it's in a group, I've had people say, gee, I'm learning from people that got nothing to do with my industry. Yeah, because management is the common subject all business owners need to learn. If you look at a public company, the guy that runs Telstra was not a phone technician. He got recruited from outside the industry and said, can you run this company? That's what this training's like. It's management which makes you more profit. We discuss the strategies and how to implement, and then we review that at the next session. So it's all like